Welcome to welcome, and I call this August 24th, 2023 hybrid meeting of the ABCGC Plus APS to order. Councillor Benton is excused. Commissioner Quesada, Councillors Grau and Peña, and APS members Danielle Gonzalez and Yolanda Cordova Montoya are appearing via Zoom. Matthew Willen is attending on behalf of Katrina Sandoval. Yay, welcome. So we're going to start this evening with I ask you to join me in silent invocation. Given tonight's topic, I want to make sure that I ask folks to, in this silent invocation, remember and honor all the lives lost for the reasons you're going to hear tonight. Too lost, too early, and families broken. And I believe in our good energy and thoughts, and that our goodness can help heal some of what we're going through. So if you'll join me in a moment of silence. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I want to thank all our folks joining us tonight, and welcome to the Ken Sanchez Chambers, all our council members and APS. It's good to be together. Thank you for being here. So first, I'd like to move to item number 3, approval of minutes. I move to approve the May 25th, 2023 ABCG APS meeting minutes. Can I please have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fablecorn.
Yes.
Commissioner Baca.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada. Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Councillor Peña.
Yes.
Councillor Grout.
Yes.
Matthew Whelan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We have a pass. We will move to
So
public
called.
comment. I want to make some comments about public comment. As chair, I'm excited. I think we have such an important conversation to talk about tonight. I'm so grateful for the time that Mr. Luis Robles is giving us. And I know that all of you, all that are here or online or in the room, are there because you care so much. So I want to give opportunity after we have some important conversations on the agenda tonight. So I want to give opportunity after every item on the agenda for public comment. So you don't have to try and get it all in, all the things you want to say in 2 minutes before the meeting. You can speak after on the subjects as we go. So also I understand that some people might need to just leave and want to make their public comments. So we'll still open public comment, but please know that you don't have to rush through a full statement, and we can have time after every item to have public comment. Sound good? All right. With that, if you are signed up, please, Julianne or Angela, name the folks that are up for public comment, and if they want to pass until later, they can.
Okay. We have Ilsa Bill, followed by Angeli Taneja, followed by Catherine McGill.
And Ilse, did you want to speak now or after the presentations?
If it's okay, I would like to do it now.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this conversation. These dollars are just so important. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And you only need to take a drive through the international district to see how much and how urgent the need is. And we have to get it right. There are no second chances on this. And it's not just having some semblance of a strategic plan. It's more a case of really putting in the effort of having a comprehensive and robust plan that can also guarantee that all the services and pathways are sensibly articulated with each other and sufficiently supported. We absolutely have to maximize the impact of these dollars, not fritter them away on spurious flash in the pan activities. We, the taxpayers and residents of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, we need to see some real action with this, and no more pacifying words, please. It's just too important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ilsa.
Catherine McGill.
My name is Catherine McGill, and I'm the founder and director of the New Mexico Black Leadership Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you today regarding this critical matter of addressing the opioid crisis that continues to impact our communities. As the previous speaker says, I live and work in the International District. While treatment unquestionably plays a vital role in tackling this crisis, it's imperative that we shift our focus towards a long-term solution. Comprehensive prevention efforts fueled by the opioid settlement funds. As the saying goes, you can't get wet from the word water. We must delve into substantive, innovative strategies to overcome this challenge. Treatment is essential, but we must recognize that prevention is the linchpin of our fight against the opioid crisis. Prevention is not merely a desirable option, it is the pathway to sustain change. It's about halting the problem at its source before it has a chance to take root. Prevention efforts, when cleverly devised, culturally relevant, and delivered by trusted messengers in our communities, are the true game changers. The opioid settlement funds provide us with a unique opportunity to enact cross-sector collaboration. By bringing together experts from diverse fields, we can develop multifaceted approaches that address the crisis from all angles. The 4 C's, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication, are the guiding principles that will assure these funds are used effectively. Critical thinking prompts us to dissect the issue, understand the root causes, and craft strategies that strike at the heart of the problem. Creativity allows us to think beyond traditional solutions and devise innovative methods that resonate with our community members. I really hope that when we're looking for developing a plan, that we will include everyone. And as we consider the gravity of the situation, let's remember that we can't legislate our way out of the crisis, nor can we police our way out. The solution lies in our collective commitment to confronting this issue head on. The only way out is through proactive and dynamic prevention efforts that engage everyone, from our educators to parents, healthcare professionals to law enforcement officers. I really hope that,
Kathy.
thank you.
Go ahead and finish out. I just want
I
to.
know, I really hope that we can come together in a way that will be a model for collaboration across many different platforms for solving the issues that face us in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Kathy McGill.
And that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Okay, we will move forward. Approve new business. Now we'll proceed with new business, opioid settlement funds. So I was grateful that our super keen attorney Ken Martinez was made sure that Bernalillo County was that the commission was informed and included on what was going on with the opioid settlement funds. And so I was really proud to hear this early on, knew that we couldn't speak about it earlier, but glad that now that it's public that we could bring the same information that we got so strategically. Thank you, County Attorney Martinez. And I wanted you to hear directly from Mr. Luis Robles, who did an amazing job representing our state to make sure that New Mexico got what it's deserved because of the tragedies that have happened to our families. So I want to welcome, and I don't know, Ken, if you wanted to say another word of welcome with Mr. Robles.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. Thank you for inviting us to this event, and we're blessed at Bernalillo County to have great partners. And in this instance, we had Mr. Robles representing the county. He also had a relationship in representing the state, and he actually tried the case. So here's a lawyer before us that worked for the county and state of New Mexico, tried the Walgreens case. The Walgreens settlement is an outlier from all the other national settlements because New Mexico had its own case that was tried. Mr. Robles was in the courtroom trying that case, and we have the best result of anybody in the nation, I believe. And I think we've been very fortunate to have someone of Mr. Robles' caliber on our side. We've asked him to share with everybody his list through of where we're at on all the cases to date. There's still some outliers out there that could be years, you know, the ones that went all the way to Supreme Court and have bankruptcies in them. But Mr. Robles has done an entirely good job of doing it in all the above ways. And we also had, I have to say, a great relationship with the Attorney General's office, prior and present. They worked very well with us. And the AG, you'll notice in this, agreed. Attorney General Hector Balderas, and supported again by the new Attorney General Torres, that the local governments would get 55% of the share of the state funds that would go to the whole state, including the local governments. So that was, I think, very generous of them. And it bodes well. It also recognizes, I think, the knowledge that this is where the rubber meets the road in dealing with this crisis with the local governments. But we're very fortunate to have Mr. Robles, and he's very busy, and he's been nice enough to work on this, I know, late at night and early this morning. And he's visiting us from one of his other duties, and I think out of Las Cruces. But Mr. Robles, thank you so much for all the work you've done on our behalf.
Thank you for your kind words. I certainly appreciate them. And I appreciate the opportunity to having represented Bernalillo County through this opioids litigation. And also a word to the city councilors and the members of the Albuquerque Public Schools Board. For 8 years, I was an assistant city attorney. I have represented the city of Albuquerque now for about 30 years in various litigation, and some of the most high-profile litigation the city of Albuquerque has ever been through. So because of that, I have very much a certain relationship with the city of Albuquerque that spans decades, and currently representing them. And in the Albuquerque School Board members, I say to you as a proud graduate, not only me, but my 2 sons from Albuquerque High School. And also, you know, my wife graduated from Sandia, but, you know, we'll cast that aside. I have represented the Albuquerque Public Schools for 20 years. Their interests are my interests. And that's what I want to say to those of you who don't know who I am and what I have done. I have done considerable work for all of you in some of the biggest cases that your entity has experienced over the course of these many years that I've been a lawyer. And I will say about being a lawyer, I've represented all of the 3 entities in some very high profile litigation. But when it comes to the opioids litigation, I've come to understand why many in the legal community have called the opioids litigation the biggest and most complicated case in the history of the United States. It was a monstrous case dealing with a monstrous client, defendants, and the litigation was something to behold. Ultimately, we brought this lawsuit and 5 years after we brought it, we finally had an 8-week trial in Santa Fe, which ultimately, as we went along the way, culminated in a number of settlements, substantial in nature. Mr. Martinez mentioned the Walgreens case as one example. There is the national settlement that Walgreens has offered, but because of the work we did at trial, our settlement is 10 times this, in terms of its size of the national settlement, just to give you a sense of where New Mexico lies and the opportunities that are now before this commission about working collaboratively. But first, I'd like to present to you what the settlement means in terms of dollars. Because ultimately, the dollars are what's necessary to fund this crisis. A crisis that, as a lawyer, I had 5 years, and I devoted 5 years of my life to this case, and had an opportunity to see firsthand the crisis and the people it affects, to talk to experts across the country about the crisis and how to see it and how to address it. And ultimately, that helped us present the case that we did and have the results that I'm now going to present to you. So I'm here to talk to you about the litigation, the settlements, and what they mean in terms of dollars returned. Now, we started out collectively and again, I did not represent the city of Albuquerque in this litigation, but I understand this litigation, I think, in a way that only someone who's tried the case can understand. And we worked very hard on behalf of all of the state of New Mexico to achieve approximately $1 billion in settlement collectively for the state of New Mexico and all its governmental entities. It is the largest civil recovery that the state has ever had an opportunity to work with. And as a result of it, I'm going to break down for you how that settlement affects both the city and the county. Now, one of the first entities to settle with nationally was Johnson & Johnson and Jensen. You may think to yourselves, isn't that like baby powder? Well, Johnson & Johnson had opioids fields in Tasmania, created their own opioid medications from the poppies that they grew, and they distributed. And from that entity, so we look here in terms of what Johnson & Johnson has paid out one time. Bernalillo County's allocation was $3.2 million. The city of Albuquerque's allocation was $3.9 million. And then there were the three big distributors. These are all Fortune 50 companies. And we had a national settlement. The national settlement was in the neighborhood of $50 billion. And then the allocation in terms of Bernalillo County's $13.8 million. The city of Albuquerque's allocation was $16.8 million. These are 17 payments over the course of time. And then there were the retail pharmacies. Now, you may have wondered what happened to the manufacturers, the entities that created the opioids crisis, and that Purdue Pharma that I've heard so much about. There are a number of bankruptcies that occurred, Purdue Pharma being one, Endo Pharmaceutical being another. And those cases are very slowly working their way through the courts. The Purdue Pharma bankruptcy is now before the United States Supreme Court. And so there will be a time when I will be able to report maybe to this commission, but certainly to Bernalillo County about where we stand on the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy and what that means for the county. But we had a trial that was set to go up against the 5 big retail pharmacies in New Mexico: Albertsons, CVS, Kroger, which in New Mexico is Smith's, and Walmart and Walgreens. Now, before trial, we had some, last minute settlements. So with regard to Albertsons, sorry about that. Albertsons, the Bernalillo County's allocation, 1.3, City of Albuquerque, 1.5 million. CVS Pharmacies, the one-time payment 2020, 1.1 million to the county. $1.4 million to the city. Kroger, which is Smith's, $5 million to the county, $6.2 million to the city. And then Walmart, their payment was $8.8 million to the county. The Albuquerque share was $10.9 million. And then there was Walgreens. They never wanted to go to mediate. They never tried to settle. They were going to essentially go to the mat, so to speak. And we ended up finishing our trial against Walgreens, only to have them settle much later. And they settled with New Mexico for $500 million. And in doing so, it was the largest settlement proportionate to population that Walgreens has had with any state. And certainly, like I had mentioned previously, it was 10 times the national settlement that's currently being approved. Now, this is payments over the course of 15 years. Bernalillo County's allocation is $28 million. The city of Albuquerque's allocation is $34.3 million. There are some manufacturers, but they had very small market shares in New Mexico and certainly in Bernalillo County. Allergan and Teva, which are monstrous pharmaceutical companies, they're paying out Allergan $1.4 million to Bernalillo County. The city was receiving 1.8, and that's over the course of 7 payments over as many years as well. And then Teva, same in terms of its payments, $2.4 million to Bernalillo County. The city of Albuquerque is receiving $3 million. Then there are some much smaller in terms of market share manufacturers, KBK Tech, Hikma, and Emil. And they respectively, because of their market share, are paying much more modest amounts. KBK Tech for Bernalillo County, $54,000, Albuquerque, $37,000. Hikma, again, payments over 3 years, $30,000. City of Albuquerque, $66,000. Emil, over the course of 3 payments, $44,000 for Bernalillo County, and the city's allocation is $53,000. Now, when we look at the total amounts, again, that are being allocated from the settlements to Bernalillo County, we're looking at approximately $65.7 million. The city of Albuquerque, $80.3 million. So when all is said and done, over the course of approximately 15 years, the city of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County collectively will receive $146 million as a result of the opioid settlements. And certainly the folks in finance are wondering about the timing of the payments and other information about have we received the money that you say we should have received. I can have a separate online conversation with those finance folks, but that is what the settlements call for. That's the money that is supposed to be delivered through a third-party administrator for both the county and the city. And for the finance folks who are telling their elected officials, first we need the money in our accounts before it can be used, we can have a conversation about that. But that certainly is what the settlements say about the amounts that should be delivered to both the city and the county. Now, all of the opioids settlements, they're 600-page documents. Each, they are some of the more complicated, legal instruments I have ever read. But, I can sort of sum up some of the things that matter most to all of you. These settlement funds can be used, for opioid remediation. It is to address opioid use disorder and all of its collateral consequences. These funds can be used for all the opioid sort of related work that needs to be done to address the crisis, everything from purchasing of Narcan, education, prevention, addressing and teaching first responders, media campaigns, and of course, treatment and research. And what's important is I've sort of seen this and, in my conversations with the many professionals and experts throughout the country that have worked on this crisis, is that the governmental entities can combine their efforts, that is, combine their settlement funds to work collectively on a solution that's appropriate for their community. It's in the settlement documents, and in many respects, there's a certain expectation when you read the documents that is the path forward, not that it's required. And I just want to be clear about that, not required, but it's like that's what's baked into the documents. Now, you think about my youngest son who is now, left high school and beginning his time in college. And I was struck when I was just looking at one of his economics textbook, and I came across a concept that we all understand, economies of scale, that there is a certain savings to be had when entities collectively work to obtain a certain result, as opposed to individually competing for that same result. And again, by joining forces, the county and the city can avoid the redundancy of service. And by avoiding redundancy, the county and the city can provide more service and benefits to its citizens than they could separately. And I think about some of the things that I learned as a lawyer from those who were suffering. I remember this, and this comes from, the many, from a 12-step program. I can't stay sober, but we can. This acknowledgement that it takes a community to help the person who is suffering from opioid use disorder. That's the only way forward. And that's what I've learned by looking at other communities that are addressing the problem, whether it's in Ohio or West Virginia. Again, some other communities that are just as hard hit as us in New Mexico, and how they are working collectively, working collectively to make meaningful changes in their community. And I would say this in terms of my collective knowledge, not that I pretend to be a healthcare professional, a mental health care provider, a treatment provider, or an elected official. But what I have learned in those 5 years, that by working together and providing services that our community needs, we can do more than working alone. And so with that, I stand ready for any questions you might have.
Thank you so much again, Mr. Robles, for your time and for your work on this. I want to give time to our folks, and I want to thank you. And I just want to, that last slide, I don't think many of you have worked with lawyers. Would you expect that? I guess, that's what this case has done, right? The reality of what Mr. Robles has seen that we have not got to see, or maybe we have. But thank you again. So I want to open it up for definitely our folks on the diocese. This is it, right? We're hearing it loud and clear for reals in front of each other, and I'm glad we could do this together. Are there any questions from our members?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to verify, so the treatment and prevention, that includes housing, yes?
Yes, so long as the housing is maybe as you take the person as you find them, and if the person suffering from opioid use disorder, in order to further their treatment, you build housing to address that, that's within the boundaries of these settlement agreements. But to build housing, let's say, for people who are suffering from homelessness And then basically as a generic way of looking at the expenditure of money, that's not what's allowed. So the housing has to be specifically geared up for helping those who are suffering from opioid use disorder avoid homelessness, if that makes sense. It is a distinction with a difference that makes all the difference in how you view the expenditure of funds. It's to provide those who need it, who have opioid use disorder, and providing them with the services, the housing, the support that they need, as opposed to a generalized approach trying to capture other folks in the community who are not suffering from opioid use disorder.
Great, thank you.
Any other guests? Counselor Feeble-Corn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Robles, thank you so much for being here tonight and explaining all this to us. I just have a question on how much of a sure thing is this money? If one of these entities go bankrupt or something like that, is there a chance that those final payments and out years don't come to us?
That's certainly an issue. One of the, and I'll start from the broad view and move very quickly down to the essence of your question. The size of the opioids crisis far exceeds the market value of all of these corporations combined. This, actually paying for the totality of the crisis would drive them all into bankruptcy. That was the hard truth that we learned through the litigation. And then there had to be a way of essentially settling these cases that didn't throw Walgreens or Walmart into bankruptcy. And if you think about that, we're talking about the Fortune 10 of this nation in terms of corporate wealth. That's how big the crisis is and still is. So the way that these cases were settled with the acknowledgement that, this put them in hard financial straits, but it wasn't going to force any of these entities into bankruptcy. That's not to say that down the road, and not to pick on anyone in particular, but let's say, for example, Walgreens experiences more financial trouble and ends up in bankruptcy. These settlements were calculated so that did not happen because of the settlement. But we can't guarantee that years down the road, one of these entities, one of these big pharmaceutical manufacturers or one of the big distributors doesn't find, problems in the market that none of us foresaw. So yes, there's always a possibility, but the settlements won't be the cause of it.
Thank you for that information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Do we have folks online that I can't see? I just want to make sure. Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. Thank you, Madam Chair. One question dovetailing on what Commissioner Baca said on the subject of housing. So, you mentioned that you take the individual as they are, and so, you build the housing with the intent of housing those experiencing opioid use disorders. What happens as, hopefully, ideally, conditions improve? They're connected with casework, they're connected with treatment, they're connected with resources, and they're no longer, so to speak, testing positive for opioids. How rigid are those sort of guidelines on use of that housing into the future, I guess?
This is with me being the eternal optimist. You address the crisis and opioid use disorder begins to wane. The governmental entity, the city, the county, then can keep the asset, and let's say it is housing, and be used for another purpose. That, of course, is assuming that the crisis has abated and that there is no longer the need. Then that asset belongs to the county, to the city, and then it can be transitioned to another use. That's me being the optimist. But then again, I live in this city too, and I see what I see. There's a lot of work ahead of us.
I actually think that that's more of a behavioral health answer. And I haven't been in the field for a while, but we do have experts in the room. But from what I know, right, a model would be of when they say prevention, all the models in Albuquerque that at least that I've been able to talk to, but have a model of it's called supportive housing, and there's various levels depending on how intensive care you need, and of course it then weans off, but then you're like graduated from the program, but all of that is that you have a place to go to next, or you drop out of the program for negative reasons. But hopefully some of our folks will either present or ask questions. Yes, Counselor Pena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation. Thank you for all the information. I just have a question on some of the smaller counties. It doesn't sound like you represented, but the county and the others, but some of the other counties throughout the state, did they file these lawsuits? Do you know, or and are they receiving, settlements proportionate to their population? Because as you all know, Albuquerque is the hub, and we end up providing the services for the entire state of New Mexico because people come here to get, treatment or whatever it may be. So, I just start to get concerned that proportionate to, the allocation, and everybody's talking about how much per person population wise, right? But are we going to have to kind of help to serve the entire state, which is great. But, as you know, even though it sounds like a lot of money, the impact that this crisis has had in our community, it's not very much money.
Yes, our consortium of law firms represented an outsized share of the governmental entities in New Mexico, the local governmental entities, all the way from up Taos down to Doña Ana County and across, the width of the state, and many city governments as well. So I have a sense, without revealing too much, because some of it's attorney-client privilege, but there are some counties that have collected in groups of 6 to essentially pool their resources and provide, community resources for the citizens of those counties. And again, this is the part I know an awful lot. I can't say an awful lot, but this wouldn't be the only possible city-county collaboration among the others that I know about. And I think I can say that much. So others are thinking about collaboration and are actively working towards it. Small communities and the bigger communities throughout our state are all thinking about this in that same way. How can we leverage our settlement to do more for our citizens than we can do by ourselves?
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Pena. Okay, I believe we have Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes, I just wonder, are there plans for a state convener to pull all of the, the cities, the counties together? I mean, I was thinking of the Department of Health in the work around 2PAC, where it was, a state convening and a state plan around tobacco prevention. But was that also considered as part of this, with everybody getting these separate pots? Is there a state convener to help us? Or was there thought given to helping us to leverage and to really develop a state plan as well?
And again, speaking as a lawyer, not as an elected official, what I can say that the thought behind the way in which the settlements were structured, and this is very different than the tobacco litigation in which the state of New Mexico received the tobacco proceeds, but none of the local governmental entities did. This gave an opportunity for the local governmental entities to address the problems that are in their community. And so there's a certain thought about the expertise that goes along with living in the community and addressing it, as well as the money that was allocated to the state that ultimately can find its way to the local communities with state oversight. So in that way, that there was the thinking by the lawyers, and again, none of us are elected officials, about, you know, how to provide for all our clients, because they range from communities that are 10,000 and above, all the way to the state of New Mexico, and ultimately trying to find a fair resolution so that representative government at all of these various levels for all these various entities works for them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Robles, and thank you for that question. I'm hoping this can be a conversation, and I guess in my view, right now, the state has not had, everybody knows that our behavioral health system was gutted under the previous Martinez administration. And so while the whole state is just really climbing its way back, in this last ABCGC meeting, we heard from Senator Ortiz y Pino, and they passed their funding for state funds. And they really sounds from his view that they really prioritized the education pipeline for building the bench. And he said along the whole sort of spectrum from peers to clinical behavioral health providers, that's what they're trying to incentivize the education for through their opioid dollars. And that, I forget, but hopefully you were here last time and heard. And he talked about where the state has prioritized. And I guess just from my Adrienne Barboa's view, the state is trying to get itself in order right now with new leadership and these funds or whatever. But there has been commitments, I think, in this past legislative session, and we do have expertise in the room that maybe could speak to it too. But just to where the state has decided, and so each entity, the city has already started to spend a little bit, or maybe they're not, but they have a plan to spend some of those funds, and we've spent a little bit of our funds that we've already received as the county. So I think this is an opportunity for we're also getting the bulk because this is where the majority of the population is. And this is really an opportunity to say, I truly believe in being in this world and living in it for so long, my life, I guess, that if Bernalillo County and the city are doing right, everyone else will benefit. Because of that reason, like Councilor Pena said, that everybody comes here. There's not this infrastructure right now, and we don't even have the infrastructure in Bernalillo County or the city, really. Everybody's climbing its way back, and the county happened to have more funds because of the Behavioral Health Initiative tax. But here we are with this opportunity to build that. We know what's coming over time, and we know how long until we get it. And government has enough to front the money and make things happen in a period of time, of course, with the right input to really have an infrastructure that supports a system that can work together. Right now, I can just say, and I'm sorry if you've heard me say these things before, but we were turning away a lot of people from the MATS, the CARES campus. Many people know it's the MATS, and we've figured out how to stop doing that. But I know UNMH turns away a lot of people. There's no other place after jail or hospital clinical staff. So we're working on a plan to try and have a summit about co-occurring disorder issues so that the university in Bernalillo County can be ready for co-occurring issues, which is why they say we turn away people. But these are just the little fixes, right? We need to look at the big picture and see what can be the infrastructure. Let's look over 7 years. What can we put a lot of infrastructure? Know that the state's already trying to put a lot into the bench and the things they're doing. And how can we look at it and have a plan that helps us go forward for the best of our communities? So anyways, I'm talking a lot. Chad, or is there another?
Can I just ask one other question?
Yes, please.
Commissioner, yes. I guess I'm assuming there's some convening that's going on, some conversations and planning. What's the expectation or what's the role that you see for APS in in the conversation? Like when should we come in, or how are we going to be part of that conversation?
Well, I was going to say, here it is. Just kidding. So I'm glad we're going to be talking next on the agendas also is, Commissioner Olivas. This ABCGC was originally, I believe, put together to vet behavioral health proposals, and given when the behavioral health initiative was passed, and that hasn't happened since I've been here, but tonight we will be doing it for the first time since I've been here, with Commissioner Olivas bringing forth a resolution that he's proposing for the commission, and we're hoping the city can take a look at and do jointly, as we've done before, but all to be discussed and looked at. And that's why I'm excited about that conversation tonight. And then we also have some of the, City of Albuquerque is working with folks, Health Equity Council, I believe, is also here to talk about what they're planning to do to get some community input. And anyway, so it's all to be discussed. And that's what our hope is for tonight, that this is one of the start of the conversations. And then, yes, I think we have time. If our resolutions pass and the city wants to, then part of that is to make sure we have some time to gather information and have a plan before we just start spending. So we're doing right by our families. So yes, we would want APS to be, I believe I would want APS to be involved in that. Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask one more question of Mr.
Yes,
Robles.
please. I want this to be a conversation. I'm not kidding. Please.
So I learned a lot when Senator Ortiz-Pino came and gave us a presentation last time. And one of the things I heard loud and clear from him was that we are just short on experts, on actual providers, addiction specialists, folks to actually work in these clinics or wherever we end up housing that services. And I'm just wondering, it seems to me that it's a short jump to say that some of these funds could be used to somehow incentivize additional experts and professional staff to either come to New Mexico or to stay in New Mexico. But I just wondered if we could ask Mr. Robles for sure if that is an acceptable use of these kinds of funds.
Hiring personnel to address individuals who suffer from opioid use disorder is acceptable under these agreements.
Would it be acceptable to, say, incentivize them somehow, paying off part of their student loan or otherwise giving them additional, more than just salary, to get them here and get them into those clinics?
Interesting, the student loan, that word I have not read in any of the settlement agreements. But there is this, and again, once again, that a mental health care professional, as an example, being brought to the city, to the county, to work here, not because they're going to provide addiction services for the community in general, but they're brought here specifically to address the opioids crisis and those individuals suffering from opioid use disorder. As long as that's occurring, you're within the bounds of the settlement agreements. And again, I make this point because that point will be audited down the road. We're not just bringing in an addiction specialist to also deal with individuals who suffer from alcoholism, for example. That's not what this money is for.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Hello. Oh, yeah, so we will have some folk. Do you guys see the note? Is there any else of the members of ABCGC? Can we see it as a gallery on here? Okay, yeah.
Madam Chair, if I
yes, Councilor Pena.
Yeah, Madam Chair, as the conversation is going, just a couple of, I know you were talking about how, how our behavioral health services, there was something happened in the past that really disassembled our whole behavioral health system. But I know one of the issues, or I don't know, I hear one of the issues is that the Medicaid reimbursement, part of the problem is that Medicaid doesn't reimburse at the same rate that they do in other states, and yet we're one of the poorest states. So, that's something that I hope to carry that conversation on to our delegation and really talk to them about what we can do with that, because some of the people that came over from Arizona to provide these services, and you're smiling because you must be familiar with the issue. But some of the people that came over from Arizona, they had anticipated being reimbursed at the same rate that they were in Arizona, and that just didn't occur here. So that's when many people or companies left as a result of that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's some of the information that I hear about the reimbursement for Medicaid here in the state. And then just happened to be having a conversation with a physician who belongs to a physicians group, and he was saying that, we really need to recruit more and provide incentives. And all this is, I think, a digression from the conversation. But as we're having this conversation, I mean, this whole issue is so multifaceted to really get to the core of what the problem is. But he was saying that we have a lot of students coming in from out of state and participating and getting their degrees here, and then they leave. And then we're not really recruiting and doing a good job of getting people who are from here and helping them to become physicians and, get enrolled in UNM and whatever. So I just kind of wanted to add that based on what the chair was saying, because once you start dicing this up, it just gets so many levels of complication.
That's where I think my biggest hope is that we can see where the state's investing, and then we can say, okay, where are the other places that we can invest to make it whole, right? And if the state is in the best position to fund those incentives and ways to feed the pipeline, whether it's recruitment or, I guess, of course, that should be in our conversations and on the table for our considerations as well. But we've seen the state move mostly in that direction, I guess is what I'm saying. But there's also, and I know that others that are on, so if Gilbert or Bryce or any of the others are itching to answer a question that's being asked, please say so. I did also want to just mention to the Medicaid reimbursement, right? The gutting of it, when Arizona came, federal Medicaid reimbursements are set at a federal level. So we actually have some of the better Medicaid reimbursements because of our poverty in our state, and our state is over 40% covered by Medicaid. And I think that's what Arizona wasn't expecting, right? To be in a place that is 40%, people can't survive under that. And our providers are right to say that it's a hard, we have providers that provide it for scale. I think we have Dr. Taneja on here that does fee to scale and Medicaid reimbursement. Those are hard for our providers. And I also believe that the state is moving right now on Medicaid expansion and has moved in this last legislative session. I could be wrong, to increase thanks. Bryce, please come and answer that.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Bryce Pittenger. And just to address the Medicaid issue that Krista brought up, so when this new administration took over in 2019, the behavioral health rates were raised by 30%. And then this past legislative session, there was legislation passed and money allocated to raise the rates even further to bring them in parity with Medicare, because Medicare sometimes doesn't have a robust behavioral health benefit package like Medicaid does, but pays more sometimes. So I think that issue is something that the state has been taking bites out of for a while, and that will continue. And that has to do with the workforce pipeline issue that you brought up as well. And there's a lot of strategies there, a lot of investment that the state did over the last couple of years with their ARPA dollars, $15 million into higher education first go round for some social work chairs and seats, sort of to build some of that infrastructure, but other, sort of plans as well. And I would just say, for prevention, I got to spend my day-to-day in Valencia County doing a focus group on the opioid abatement dollars, and they are going in with Sierra, Cibola, Catron, Hidalgo, and Guadalupe. and they are sharing their resources. Well, we're initiating a strategy to create focus groups, narrow with county manager and the warden, and everybody was there today, and then broaden with public input when we have our sort of universe defined, I guess. And then it is per capita distribution, and so you can imagine of those counties that I mentioned who gets the lion's share, but yet who has the highest need in terms of overdose deaths is Catherine. So I think that, you know, that kind of collaboration to look at hub and spoke models, to look at leveraging jails for medication-assisted treatment, to look at counties that have hospitals and could create, you know, sort of a continuum through that. Every single one of those county strategies is probably going to look different because of their needs. And I did have a question really quick for Mr. Robles. So the lawsuit with regards to, you know, the class of people with substance use are a protected class. And they have a right to treatment in our jails and in our prisons. And so just kind of wondering about that in terms of, you know, the overlap with medication-assisted treatment in our jails and any other words you might have on that with some of the allowable uses and then strategies. So, and is it okay if I ask a question?
Yes,
Okay.
please, thank you.
Even on my best day, I do not pretend to be an expert with any, you know, psychological background, mental health care background, but I can't speak for the law. And what these settlement agreements say, money can be earmarked for, you know, correction, whether it's at the state level or whether it's at the county level, in terms of providing those services in a jail setting, NDC being an example. So if what you're asking that money from this settlement can be devoted to providing those treatments at the Metropolitan Detention Center, the answer is yes. And so you know, again, the manner in which that's provided, even though I have worked on the McClendon case for a number of years, I'm not going to pretend that I know the answer because you know, there are folks that I have met with who are far better and have a far deeper understanding of how to address the problems than I do.
Okay. Yes,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
I just want to thank Mr. Robles also for his very well fought effort on behalf of New Mexicans and your very concise presentation on a very difficult issue. But I just wanted to also say that your last statement, by working together, we can provide more expansive opioid remediation and services than by working alone. And so I think that kind of leads us to the next item on the agenda, which is a proposed resolution for
We actually have a couple of other
do that.
things.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
You could talk about the resolution.
but we are limited till 7 tonight, and we have a lot of other really important stuff that feeds into this.
Yeah,
So
and
I don't.
we also have some presentations.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Mr. Robles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to open it up for community comment on and before Mr. Robles has to leave, so you guys can ask Mr. Robles directly anything you want. People in the audience and if you're online, please raise your hand, and if you're in the audience, please come up to the podium. And everybody, you have 2 minutes, but again, try and keep it short. Ask the question so Mr. Robles can use the time to answer.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Bach, and I serve on one of the subcommittees of the Behavioral Health Initiative. So I have a comment leading to a question. My background's in social work, and I used to work with pregnant and parenting teens. And there's a saying in that world, the best contraception is a bright future. So I'm curious about the children of the people who we've been talking about who have active addictions. Can we reach out and use this money to serve children who are in the foster care system? And can we use children who are not directly at this point affected by it, but certainly at risk for substance use disorder? because of, I won't go into it. I think you all know what I'm talking about. So that's my question.
As I consider your question, I see it in two parts. You take the person who appears with the disorder and you treat the whole person. And if that person has children and they all find themselves homeless, again, this is a hypothetical, then you can treat and provide services for that family. But it does start with the parent, the guardian who appears with, suffering from the opioid use disorder. So there is that. And then those who are at risk, it depends on whether you're actually asking about providing services in terms of education, prevention. Those are allowable uses. So there are ways to think about the problem in the ways the settlement agreement has described. And it just takes a little thought to essentially, I won't say shoehorn because I'm not supposed to give you all legal advice in this form, but there is a way to look at these problems in a different way and think to yourselves, does this settlement agreement address this particular aspect of the crisis? And then you can address it with the settlement in that particular way. So again, it may be looking at a problem that you professionally have looked at for years in a different way, so that you find yourselves looking for solutions with the settlement proceeds that have been allocated.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. Any other? Yes, Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you. So just as a follow-up, I wanted to ask or clarify if prevention dollars will be available to school systems, to school districts.
So Luis Robles, go ahead.
Yes. Yes, that's certainly allowable under the settlement agreement. Working and APS, it was a part of the settlement agreements reached with all of these entities. And so APS had to approve these settlement agreements, even though they didn't participate in the settlements because they weren't litigants in this case. So for everyone, the commissioners and the city councilors to know that APS, I presented before them the problem, asked them for their input, and without APS's consent, none of this could have happened. So I say that, again, that was an open meeting. I'm not revealing anything I shouldn't. And it's important to know that that money can be used for education, to provide services for those children who have parents who've been affected, as well as those students who find themselves afflicted.
Thank you. And we're here, right, together today. Keep it that way. Any other questions, comments for Mr. Robles? Okay, moving on, we do have number 2, a community engagement. We have a presentation by Gilbert Ramirez from the city of Albuquerque, as well as Rashid Ahmad, Janice Herrera, and Enrique Cardiel from the Health Equity Council. Take it away, Gilbert.
Madam Chair, members, thank you. My name is Gilbert Ramirez. Oh, apologies, these are my dogs. I'm the Deputy Director over Behavioral Health and Wellness Programs for the City of Albuquerque. We have been working in collaboration both with the county and our partners around planning for this. And so a contract that we currently have in place with the Health Equity Council that's outside of this funding, we sat with the team there to kind of talk about a community needs assessment that could be put together to really help guide us in this area. Now, many of you know plenty of assessments have been done in the communities in regards to gaps, but what we do know is when many of those took place, fentanyl and or opioids were not an issue. So this is very specific work, right? Looking at data and where the investments for these dollars. And so tonight, and I'm appreciative of our partners to be here, Executive Director Enrique Cardiel and team, Rashad, thank you, Janice as well. And I'm not sure if Larry will be presenting as well, if he got let in. They have kind of put together a work plan for the city I've been working with the county in regards to folks that we can also include in this community needs assessment for feedback, which has been great. And so this is definitely something we not only want to move forward with, but also share as a resource as we look at this joint collaborative work that we could do for high impact areas for investment. So with that being said, maybe I defer over to Enrique just for his introductions of his team. And then I know we have some panelists that will be sharing the work that they've been doing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. And hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. My understanding is we're going to provide recommendations and not necessarily a plan. And so that's what we've been working under. And so I'll just introduce my team as I see them on the screen. Janice Herrera is one of the folks doing in-person outreach with people and just checking with our partners and different community members and talking to people in person. Rashid is helping via online and as well as doing research, but also contacting partners and helping us follow up with presentations and information gathering. Larry Nojos is also working on focus groups and helping us get information that way. So I will turn it over to the team and I will just answer any questions that require me as the director to say anything. But otherwise, the team has been doing the work, and I think we're making great progress. And we have, I believe, we're looking at trying to finish up and provide something in writing in September, if I remember correctly.
Thank you, Enrique. So before I get started, I do have a quick clarifying question. I see right now it is 6:11. Is there a specific time that we're allotted to speak?
No, I mean, we would like to keep it as efficient as possible. So if you could keep it to 10 minutes. 15.
That's what I was hoping for.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Okay, I'll move through this as quickly as I can. If you bear with me, let me know if I'm going too fast. But I'm hoping to also
Janice,
have a little time for questions.
I just want you to know the content for me. This is the one opportunity that we're starting with for community to hear. And so don't feel rushed.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, don't feel rushed.
Okay. Buenas tardes. My name is Janice Herrera. I'm a New Mexican. My family has been in our state for at least 14 generations, and I work as a health promotion specialist at the nonprofit Health Equity Council. I represent a team of 8 staff, 3 contractors, and 1 intern. And today I honor Liam, my loved one who I lost through a polysubstance opioid overdose in 2011. Rest in power. So today I'd like to start off, first of all, thinking about power mapping from a place of strengths. So we are Bernalillo County's only health council. And so we've been working with local government officials recently to renew our acknowledgement proclamation certificate, which is something of note, I think. But I wanted to just highlight HEC's experience with opioid work, which includes amongst our varying staff team, the prescription drug overdose group, which works with clinicians, the strategic prevention framework for prevention prescription drugs, which is part of the Opioid Accountability Initiative. My colleague Larry leads regular used needle pickups using city available tools to identify hotspots where needles have been reported, during which time we also do Narcan distribution for folks who are on the street. We also do Narcan training. We train other trainers, and we provide Narcan to supply hubs, including MDC, Albuquerque Public Schools, rehabilitation centers, and other places that have regular use. Churches, pretty much everywhere that you find good people, we're happy to go. We also have supplied sharps containers, lock boxes, and DeterraSafe drug disposal bags for members of the community who would like prevention or harm reduction supplies for their home. Our staff experience, this is honestly the best staff team I've had the privilege to work with. We offer everything ranging from on-the-ground services to research that is conducted based out of a local, national, and international basis.
And through this project, we've been leveraging our experience, skills, and networks, which if you only look at our staff team, it's over 74 years of experience doing community work. And if you only look at, if you include our contractors, another 3 people, then that brings us up to 137 years plus collectively. It's really quite astounding, I think, what we've been able to pull together as a local team, with international members from out of state as well. We've got the best of the best, and we're working on building from the framework of those who have come before us. And so I acknowledge those who have worked in this field in the past and who are no longer working in this area. On the flip side of that, I would also like to acknowledge our constraints. We have very limited time. We have a very small budget. And so we're doing the best that we can as a team to collectively prioritize our methodologies and activities, which I'm going to highlight and summarize for you today. I'd like to begin first, though, with a little bit of intentionality, talking about our purpose and rationale, starting with the centering of those who have been marginalized by systemic injustices that are in our community. So it's really critical that we listen to those who have been affected most by the opioid crisis. These perspectives shape our understanding and approach to the crisis and ensure that our interventions are grounded in actual needs and challenges. So we're going to center their needs, their responses as a key part of our work. In addition to providing voice to those who historically haven't had a seat at the table and who sometimes are considered not important enough for the cost of a dose of Narcan. We've heard that. In addition to that, why engagement matters is that when you take into account the value of community voices and their experiences in ensuring that the right solutions are formulated and implemented, we're making a big step forward.
Sorry.
Yes.
You want to just pause for a minute? We're trying
Sure.
to settle an alarm here that came on.
Okay, I apologize.
Not your fault.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a cough
You're so
drop
on
for a
fire.
second.
You got the alarm
I've
going
been
off.
sick. I'm sorry.
It is just a test for our folks. 1 second, Janice.
Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators.
Okay, Janice, there. Thank you. Go ahead and start again.
Yeah, okay. I'll take us just a step back and let me know if I need to go back further. But I was continuing from why it's important to center marginalized voices to why engagement also matters. Engagement is something that is really critical for us at the Health Equity Council. So when you take into account the value of community voices as well as their lived experiences, we can ensure that the right solutions are formulated and implemented. And people inherently know this when I explain to them the why for our outreach, for our questionnaire that has taken some people almost an hour to complete. They will say things like, well, it's about time. When we talk about sharing how community engagement for those who have been most effective results in more resilient, relevant, and sustainable interventions, I could give you a lot of stories from the 40 people that I've talked to so far. But we'll get to that if you have questions. I'd like to focus next on the collaborations and the partnerships that we've been working on. We have a lot of deep-rooted community links through our shared networks, which includes nonprofits, community groups, grassroots organizations, so that we can integrate the true needs and aspirations of our community. So we have been working with everyone from city departments, such as Family and Community Services, the Environmental Health Department, outreach to other departments such as 311, AFR, the County ATAB. We've been working with the state, especially through the New Mexico Department of Health and their fantastic epidemiology department. We've been working with providers and other community works, many of which I worked with before HEC, and my colleagues have as well, including the Compassion Center, the Rock at Noonday, Serenity Mesa, Street Safe, APS's Crossroads program, who asked to be a part when they heard about it during their Narcan pickup. New Seasons, which is medication-assisted treatment, mutual aid groups for supplies and outreach, so I can give things like socks to people when we approach them and ask them for a survey. And then others who we have reached out to but not yet heard back from, and the city is supporting us in trying to contact, including First Nations Casa de Salud, Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless, First Choice South Valley Clinic, Crossroads for Women, Turquoise Lodge, the Office of Peer Recovery and Engagement, and Keep New Mexico Alive. We have had constant dialogue with these entities to refine and reevaluate our strategies so that we can keep them aligned with realities on the ground once our boots are out there in the mud. When it comes to grounding things in reality, you can't do that with a little hard facts and science. So we've been doing a thorough review of reports and literature. We're looking at things that have already been done, including the New Mexico Substance Use Disorder Treatment Gap Analysis from 2020, the System Gap Analysis Addendum from 2021, the City of Albuquerque Burn Co. Collaborative Strategic Plan between 2022 to 24, and then also the 2022 edition, the Sobering Center Feasibility Study from 2021, CABQ and Burn Co.'s System Gap Analysis from 2021, the City of Albuquerque Opioid Needs Assessment 2011, the NM Community Survey 22, CABQ Service Provider and Community Member Survey Results 22, CABQ Service Provider and Community Member Forum Results 22, including a literature review. And then we've also been working with national and international partners and networks to learn more about outside work, including I have read about what other states are doing to collect data to decide how to spend their funds, similar to what we're doing right now. We are also firm believers in the process of asset mapping, which for us includes the process of understanding and leveraging existing community strengths, resources, and capacities, and ensuring that the response is rooted in real, accessible, and tangible assets. Some of our platforms and strategies to get all of this done include part one is community dialogues. So it's a space for candid conversations where a wide range of voices are heard. This is done through, we've had so far 2 meetings that encapture this at our HEC monthly networking meeting. For example, we took feedback from members of our network as to the specific questions we would be asking in our survey and adjusted some of the wording or added questions to make it more complete and correct. We're also conducting surveys. These are being done on paper, as folks tend to prefer, as we've done the outreach, and they are targeted to capture the unfiltered experiences of those grappling with the realities of opioid use. As I mentioned, it could take up an hour. We're offering people a $25 gift card, but some people have had to take breaks. We did breathing exercises with the youth at Serenity Mesa afterwards to ground. And one gentleman told me he didn't know if he could make it through the whole survey, if that was okay. Of course. We're also doing interviews. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm sorry. So for the surveys, our soft target is 50. We are already at 40. We have a little more than a week to go, and I'm hoping to get us closer to 100 by really pushing over the next week. But again, we're waiting to hear back from some of the providers. And then we're also doing interviews. The interviews are targeted to capture the perspectives of medical and other service professionals, to include treatment providers, service providers, as well as stakeholders in the medical provider field. And we have a number of partner organizations who have already agreed to do this. It is done in a virtual format. We're having focus groups, or in other words, conversations with stakeholders, individuals impacted, which includes individuals with lived experience, which Larry will be conducting next week. We're working to have a similar dialogue with Albuquerque Public Schools Crossroads program, and then possibly with providers and peer support groups, but we're running out of time. We don't have overtime in our budget, but we're cramming in as much as we possibly can. We're finally also doing a, I didn't mention for the focus group for individuals with lived experience, it's 3 hours. We are offering a $100 stipend. We've got a soft goal there of 8 and a hard goal of 12. I know Larry, I think he's gonna fill all 12, y'all. We're also offering folks lunch while they're there. We'll do breathing exercises. We'll debrief afterwards, and we'll incorporate a break because it's heavy lifting. When it comes to quantitative data gathering, we'll be collecting data on health outcomes, behaviors, and other relevant factors, trying to gather a wide range of indicators to really paint a holistic picture. Finally, the last thing I'm going to touch on, I'm a few minutes over, next steps. So we've still got to pull together the analysis and reporting. I have a lot of data entry to do because, again, they're all paper surveys. But we're going to wrap it all up with community input by the end of September is our target. As an outcome of our current ongoing work, initiatives have already sprung up as individuals and group have recommitted to responding to some of the immediate needs of the community. Today, mutual aid offered to buy me a first aid kit. When I told them that I've used up my own, I had a queue of people after I offered to treat one man's open wounds. And so people are mobilizing. I have volunteers who've already offered to help in that. And I have a vision that I would love to tell somebody about how it could be a more permanent, stable, and circulating thing. But we're working to mobilize community. We're combining our efforts in on-the-ground services with assessment, with additional funding, which we are not getting very much funding, but if at all a consideration in the next 6 to 12 months, we could possibly expand this work. Things that might be helpful. My colleague Rashid lives in the DC area and could visit a safe use site, which some folks have said would be for them a helpful thing. We don't have funding for that, but he would be a fantastic person to go there and bring back best practices. In addition, this time we didn't have any budget for our other expenses. So I had to figure out where we could cut money out of other things to have stipends for people. I've had people tell me, I was in jail when they released me, I had methadone, then I couldn't get it. And I'd say, I'm so sorry, I don't have a gift card, but I'd love to capture your story if you just give me your time. And they'd say, not today. And so the stipends are really key. Socks, immediate medical care, food to hand out, which HEC has purchased. We've had water bottles and granola bars. People will ask me, please, for 2 granola bars. People will ask me if I can't do a survey, can I have a granola bar? Narcan, we're using up our supply for hub distribution sites towards giving it to people through this outreach effort. And we could use money to buy Narcan as part of this distribution effort. Finally, that concludes the information I would like to share this evening. I thank each of you here today for your time, attention, and actions to move us towards a solution so that we can provide better services and support to those who have been impacted by the opioid crisis in our beautiful state. Together, I know we can do better. We're happy at this time to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Herrera. Any questions for the health equity team that's actively gathering data? Thank you so much. I think this is so important, right, to hear. This is where we're hearing directly from, which is so important. So thank you for doing this work. This is going to be one big important piece of the data we need. And I'm so glad that the city's moving proactively to make sure folks are actively getting that. Thank you. Yes, Gilbert.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my just expression of extreme gratitude to Health Equity Council, the entire team that's here doing this intense work, as you know, reaching out at the grassroots level to fill this information, to drive these recommendations is so crucial. And we are appreciative of your partnership to be able to, and willing to do this because you have that presence. I again share that we will provide whatever is shared with us in the spirit of collaboration to really look at these recommendations and have intentional and impactful change. This is our first step. So we appreciate the opportunity, the invitation to be here this evening to actually share what it is we're doing. And of course, in the spirit of talking around, unifying funding, looking at intentional investments and how we can continue to partner. So we stand here ready to do that. And so thank you for this time.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to hear the words collaborate, Gilbert. City, yes, thank you.
Again, from the city of Albuquerque, and I'll just echo Gilbert's sentiments to thank you guys for all your hard work. It is a work of passion. It's not a work for profit. And we know that in order to get this done in the state and throughout the county and the city, that it's going to take all of us working together. And we really look forward to everything that you guys bring forward, because we will take that information to continue to work with the council, to work with the county, and to work with the city and with our departments to try and solve this problem that affects every one of us on a day-to-day basis. So thank you again. We really appreciate everything that you guys are doing.
Thank you for having us here this evening. And Board Member Montoya, Cordova, please feel free to reach out if there's a way we can partner with APS as well.
Absolutely. Contact me too if you've got some thoughts and ideas of what you'd like us to help facilitate. But I did hear the Crossroad counselors in there, and I think that's a really good start. You might want to consider the school-based health center teams too. I know your time is running out, but there's some really good data that they've collected through their assessments that might be helpful there, because I know that with the teen screen or the screener that they use, they do catch and identify potential risks for substance use.
Thank you. Well, thank you to the team at Health Equity Council. Thank you for doing that work, and like you said, heavy lift, and being so intentional with those breaths and breaks, and I thank you for doing all that with all that you have, and being so intentional about it. Look forward to the results of your efforts. So we'll move forward next with to move on to discuss proposed opioid settlement resolution. Commissioner Olivas to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the ABCGC, for being here today. And I'll try to be succinct in my introduction of this. I know that I've talked to a few of you individually here and there about the development of this resolution and the importance of this. And it's really well timed, not just with our presentation from Mr. Robles and the Health Equity Council, but also with the discussion that I want to credit Councilor Pena for starting at City Council this week. There was a robust discussion at the council meeting about these opioid settlement monies, and I appreciate your recognizing the importance of the good work that we're trying to do at the jail with our detox program and our medication-assisted treatment program and some of the other services that we're trying to offer there to our incarcerated citizens that absolutely need our help and need that to be set up for some chance at success when they are reintegrated into our city. So really, I want to just go through this very quickly. The larger idea here to all my colleagues, especially the colleagues at the city, is for us to proceed with a joint planning process for these opioid monies. I've shared this resolution with several of you. I've shared this with the mayor's office, and am absolutely interested in hearing all of the best comments and edits that we can get to make this even stronger and better. I've done this in partnership with some of my fellow commissioners, as well as working with our ATAB board, our staff at the Behavioral Health Initiative, Pam Acosta, Chief Greg Perez. So I think that we've done a good internal effort here to put together a first draft, and the request now is really for our partners at the city to help us move this, hopefully as a joint resolution running similar to what we did with the Middle Rio Grande Housing Collaborative to establish, as this says, an evidence-based policy for the planned application of opioid settlement monies. As we heard from Mr. Robles tonight, we have a unique and potentially transformational opportunity here for targeted opioid spending to address some of these needs. This is a one-time source of funding, though it will be spread out. And so this offers us an opportunity to fund some impactful and evidence-based projects to address the scourge of opioid addiction in our community, hopefully through treatment facilities, treatment programs, and housing and other things to address addiction. And doing so, aligning with the advice of public policy experts, local providers, I think, are key to this conversation, knowing what things look like on the ground right now, and of course our communities, and of course our attorneys, and making sure that we are abiding by the terms of the settlement, of which there is a set of guidelines attached. Many of the uses that are outlined in that settlement do, in my opinion, fall in the category of being recurring expenditures. And so I think it's something that we have to understand, and we need to be prepared to commit future dollars to continue those programs sustainably or develop sustainable mechanisms for that funding as we set forth a plan. So these payments will again be received over a number of years. We have to acknowledge that as we create this strategic plan. And those strategic investments, in my opinion, can really make a lasting impact serving our communities. So what I propose to do with this resolution is combine our planning efforts for those resources between the city of Albuquerque and ideally other entities as well, the state of New Mexico and other local regional partners that may be interested, like our public schools, Albuquerque Public Schools, who have an interest and a need for these resources as well, to address this as a whole community. So to go through quickly what this resolution actually affects to do, and some of it we've actually already done, for example, here tonight. The first tenet is an estimated life of fund balance. How much money are we getting? When does it come in? I think we have a pretty decent idea of that after the presentation that we got tonight. The second tenet here is having a robust engagement and strategic collaboration with those partners that I mentioned, and drafting a joint strategic resources plan for those opioid settlement monies. I believe that will require us to implement a planning process that incorporates a landscape level of analysis of where we are at right now, what resources are available, and mapping those resources, how they connect, how they don't. And a facilitated public planning and meeting process to hear from our communities, those that are providers, those that are impacted in our community, business groups, religious groups, the whole like, taking in that public input and those that are living this on the streets. That generally these shall be allocated as one-time dollars, or the project shall be planned with an alternate budget resource to shift into as the settlement wanes. And that the projects should seek to prevent, treat, and abate opioid use disorders to achieve long-term benefits to our community, which I believe are key. That this outlasts those settlement dollars, that we set ourselves up for the next opioid. Right now we have fentanyl. We don't know what's going to be next. It may not be an opioid, but how do we set ourselves up for future success using these one-time dollars? And so I go through 4 core areas that I believe, working with our providers and our experts here, are key. And that is our IT infrastructure and systems to support a collaborative and cross-systems coordinated provider network across the region. How do we make sure that folks suffering from this addiction are able to contact the resources they need and that everyone's talking to each other? Long-term supportive housing and transitional housing is key. We know that we cannot expect treatment programs to work if we don't have stable housing for individuals, and this is a core tenet of how we can achieve lasting treatment and lasting recovery. Expansion of evidence-based, culturally sensitive treatment programs such as detox, long-term residential treatment, medication-assisted treatment, and facilities and programming serving our youth for that prevention component. And finally, to Councillor Feeblecorn's point, the 4th tenet here is treatment provider recruitment and expansion for workforce development, because we know that if we achieve those top 3, but we don't have any people with the heart and the mind to support them through their recovery, we'll have nothing. So really, that's this in a nutshell, is to try to bring the city and the county to get together to agree that we are going to plan this use of this money under some rough guidelines and tenets, perhaps include an appropriation from each entity to fund that planning process, what's needed to do that, whatever that may be, and commit to an aggressive timeline to actually achieve this in no less than 12 months. And so with that, I just want to thank the chair for letting me present this here and everyone for their attention, and offer to answer any questions I can about this, thanking our county legal staff for helping draft this. And I think that this can only get better from here with the input of our partners at the city.
Yes, Councillor Feeblecorn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate your leadership on this issue and Commissioner Olivas's leadership on this issue. Just so that everyone knows, Councilor Grout and I will be proposing a companion piece of legislation that will go through the city. We were a little bit behind because we were not kept up to date as you guys were on this issue, but we are learning and getting up to speed now, and this is a once in a lifetime opportunity with some substantial dollar amounts that we could really affect a positive change for our community. And we really want to be a part of that too. We think that anytime we can partner with the county, it's a good day, and especially on something this important. So we are taking the county resolution and making it the city, and we will be introducing that at the same time.
Awesome. Anyone online have any questions, comments? Let's make this a discussion. I'm really thankful. I've been on this board for 3 years now, and I've been wanting to talk behavioral health together. Let's do it. Any comments, questions? Okay, well, I feel.
I mean, I'll just comment, I mean, from the APS side, obviously, really interested in the resolution in terms of the partnership or solidifying that. Certainly, I know APS would definitely want to have, you know, a strong voice at the table in making sure that whatever we're planning around the prevention side or the delivery side for the students that we're serving, that it's tied into this, that we have a way to be responsive to it, but we also have a way to be a true partner in sort of talking about our challenges, but also working together to help address some of the concerns that might be coming up as a part of like through the school system that are unique, especially for school age children as they're coming through the district. So I mean, we didn't get a chance. I haven't had a chance to really look at the resolution because we didn't receive a copy. So look forward to seeing it so that we can digest it. I know Danielle Gonzalez, Board Member Gonzalez, is the chair of our policy committee, and this could be something that we probably could bring up with our policy team and just really think about and digest that and see what this means for APS and maybe give some feedback or some, you know, some thought into how APS might participate with that.
Yes.
Board Member Cordova, I want to, apologize to you for not getting that to you. I thought that was in the agenda packets that went out with the meeting. Should have been received by the members, but I'm not sure what happened there. So we'll make sure that we get that to you, and definitely want to commit to including the board and the district in that process and getting some input from you all on the resolution and the path forward in the planning process. So we certainly don't want to exclude you in any way. We need you to be part of this because your students and families are they're the core of our community. So we'll get that over to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I think, right, we want to, like, when we hear, I think everybody's minds go, especially because we know people are actively suffering, but we keep, thankfully, Mr. Robles cleared up and was clear that it's clear that the whole family is impacted, and definitely children are impacted. So what I'm thankful about Commissioner Olivas's leadership, right, this is saying, yes, make sure these are our guardrails. Make sure we're checking with providers. Make sure we're checking in with young people. Make sure we're City of Albuquerque is already checking in directly with those directly using substances. So I feel like this is exciting too. Let's get all the input and make sure we're reaching all the, covering all the gaps, or that we leave no gaps, right? Is there any other questions around the resolution? Yes, I definitely want to open up. I don't know if people online wanted to open it up for public comment. Go ahead. And if you're online and want to ask a question, please raise your hand.
So it's Debbie Bach again. I love this resolution. I think it's wonderful. There's one little piece I'd like to suggest you consider, which would be framing it in a collective impact model. And I don't know how familiar you all are with that, but I just Googled the principles, the 5 principles of collective impact. The first one is a common agenda. So when you bring all these different organizations together, you come up with some common goals. And then shared measurement. How are you going to, as a group, measure your success? The third one is mutually reinforcing activities. 4 is continuous communication, and that's where the IT piece of this is so important. There's some wonderful platforms out there now. One's called Partner Hub, which are actually designed for when you have lots of people in lots of agencies working together so that everybody can have easy access to a calendar, to the minutes of the meetings, to, sharing advertising for events that are coming up, even grant opportunities. And number 5 is backbone support. One organization, I can tell you right now, in Alaska, where I lived for 20 years, it's the United Way is the backbone for the collective impact efforts they have around child abuse prevention. And it's a model that's been studied at universities. It's working. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can be more effective, more efficient if we embrace this model.
Thank you. Okay, great. And I think this leads perfectly to, do we have anything in the chat or anyone raise their hand?
No one has raised their hand on panelists or attendees. We do have a comment from Enrique. When HEC was part of the county, we used to do cumulative impact trainings. He will see if they still have that curriculum in case it's needed.
Awesome, thank you. And now I'm excited. I think just also so equally tied, and it is not a coincidence that we knew we were going to need information, and I'm so grateful for my commissioners. We passed together a behavioral health working group, which includes many of the experts you've heard tonight, and also we have Bryce Pittenger to present for us some of the outcomes. I want to make a clear statement. This is a 9-page report. She's not going to go over all of, not the report. There has been a 9-page, I believe it's 9, is it 9 pages? Report that a whole working group, if you've been paying attention at this council, we've formed a working group of our state's best expertise, really great, smart folks came together with their hearts and smart minds and provided a report that provides really strong recommendations about how we do create a system that the county, city, for all of our residents to start addressing this crisis, even before we knew this was coming, right? So I think we were definitely thinking ahead. But I just want to say that's the first time that it's been published publicly, and we have subcommittee members that have not seen it. People that have been involved for a long time are very invested. I want you all to know these pieces are working together. We want to continue to hear and work with everybody, and we want to hear back from the subcommittees about how their responses to the report. And I'm excited that we've, in order to keep momentum going, we've been able to contract with Bryce Pittenger and Kate Gibbons. Yes. Yeah, I got it right. Who have given us such great expertise already, and tonight are going to talk about a framework that's going to help us get to meet the recommendations of this important work. So take it away, Bryce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I will be quick because I know what time it is. And this has been a long day for everybody. But I just have to say what an amazing thing to sit here and witness that moment. And I'm just so excited for this resolution. So thank you for, lining that up. So my name is Bryce Pittenger, and this is Dr. Kate Gibbons, who's going to sit today. I'm going to just not introduce ourselves, but we both have basically 25 years experience each in the field of behavioral health. Mine's in New Mexico. A bulk of hers is, and some other states as well. So in implementing the recommendations from the Behavioral Health Task Force, we wanted to create something that's palatable because this is your plan. We want you to be able to talk about it. It shouldn't be something that's got too much jargon in it or is too complicated. And so this is the framework. So the foundations, so the idea is building an infrastructure, building a system of care. And I think the recommendation said building a genuine system of care. We see this as an evolutionary process because county has done fantastic at being able to get that money out for services almost right away. And as we're growing, as we heard today with the opioid dollars and the increased gross receipts tax and other funding opportunities, blended, braided, maybe targeted with city, county, like the resource reentry, for example. So there's opportunities to grow now to a full system to contain a lot more activity in the house, so to speak. So just really briefly, the first piece is cooperative partnerships. County's already taken this first step, and I've already presented to those guys. That's why I'm kind of looking at you guys. They've taken the first step and created some internal MOUs, and so have some internal data sharing stuff set up, and I know some targeted agreements with city. And so the next step is looking at existing, at potential external partnerships and agreements, and just continuous investment opportunities from stakeholders. The scaffolding or the framework of the house is, you can't build a house without the framework. My oldest is a general contractor. He actually didn't like this slide because it's not realistic. However, you got to go with it and use your imagination. But the scaffolding or the framework is a management information system. So I know, and you know, that county has big ideas with data governance and with some of the import of data to really understand what's happening, again, both externally and internally. This is a discrete system. This is a discrete function that's about a financial payer system and a case management system. So not a case management from me to you, person to person, but a collection of data, relevant data from the people we serve, from the providers that we have. And so combined, this offers fiscal transparency, live minute burn rate in terms of where the money's allocated, what's being expended, and what could you potentially, move, and then information data for a CQI, for a continuous quality improvement system, information about who we're serving, so that activity in the house can change. Right now, the county's invested in unhoused folks and folks exiting the justice system. And those are really important pieces. We call that deep end work. Being able to build a system for the people that are most disadvantaged has a lot of value. And county may decide, along with you all in partnership, that there's a different target population down the road. The house should be able to support all activity. And so as we talk about this a little bit more in the little bit of time we have here, I'm going to move forward. So the infrastructure, the walls are the internal systems and processes. Again, this is evolutionary. We're not starting from scratch. County's got some amazing things that they have stood up and processes related to each of these already. But some of it is being able to look at what best practice is, mapping those funding streams and those capital outlay and special appropriations and grant opportunities, but also being able to stand up a quality assurance process that we can really see, are we getting what we need? Are people getting better from the services we're providing? Or are we just counting those services and then outputs versus outcomes? Counting the services is step one, so that's not a bad thing at all. But moving to a system that understands how services are working and how we need to track and adjust those could even lead to legislative changes at the state level, because they could really hear from the partnership of 670,000 people in a state of 2.1 million. They could definitely learn. So the other piece is the advisory council. Again, county was out in front, very progressive, being able to stand up something that, has people with lived experience, has key stakeholders. and has providers and subject matter experts. So the advisory council will continue, and the standing subcommittees, as one of our members spoke to here, will change. Those will be active when they're needed. So the advisory council will be able to stand up a review committee, and it will be task-oriented and time-limited. And so we don't just have these wonderful residents and subject matter experts, sort of without a term. And protocols will be developed, and then we'll sort of highlight some of the areas that you already know for policy development. That's that. The service model is the roof. The service model, so this may seem incredibly simple, but a good service model is health, which is physical health and mental health or behavioral health, meaningful activity, and basic needs or social determinants, including housing. So any population that you serve and want to serve has these at the heart. These are the issues that translate across populations, period. And so it doesn't mean that the justice-involved folks or the unhoused folks are not in this just because we did not name them. They are in this, and so is everyone else. Everybody who's a resident in Bernalillo County should be able to see themselves in this plan. Part of the service model also is navigation. So how does a person access and then navigate through the system? So we're going to be working on that. We've already had some really exciting meetings and some exciting ideas. And then the door is access. And so instead of, you hear a lot about no wrong door if you're in behavioral health, but this is all doors open. So what are our access points? I know City of Albuquerque is already in process of mapping some of their access points, and so is county, but this will be, not an exhaustive list, the iterative document, but something that we can start with to understand where are people needing to access our system, and where are our doors, and where do we need to create some new potential doors. Or go to the individual. So that kind of triage. So walk-in appointments, living room models, all of those pieces, as well as CIT teams that go to the individual if it's an extreme situation or crisis. And then the promotion of pathways. There's already, like I said, there's already a lot of pieces that Bernalillo County and City of Albuquerque both collaborate on and do individual. Well, how do we market that? How does a provider get involved with us? So we don't have just the same small catchment of providers, right? How do volunteers get involved with us? How does somebody get placed on the advisory committee? How do they get off if they want to get off? And then how do residents and stakeholders take advantage of the system? And finally, talked about this, but just really briefly, the activity inside the house. The idea, too, is that, and Gilbert said this, who's a colleague that I've been able to work with for years and is fantastic, but we do a lot of needs and gaps. We do a lot of evaluation planning. We do a lot of strategic planning. And that needs to continue to be able to continue to decide what the right targets are for spending your money and for, for combining your efforts. That said, the next strategic planning cycle, our recommendation to you, and this also is something that the implementation committee said, is that maybe a mission and a vision and values, which would be a practice framework, could be on that list, as well as a sort of a targeted thing that Gilbert described that they're doing with the opioid and fentanyl. So that is it, and I realize that it's been a long day for everybody, so thank you for tolerating this last piece, and I'm happy to stand for questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Bryce and Kate, and do not apologize. Our families are worth it, and I appreciate your presentation and the work you all have put into this, so thank you. I want to recognize other members of our behavioral health working group team and our awesome facilitator who also got us through it so quickly, and Michael Barndollar, Pam Acosta, and the folks that are online. Gilbert Ramirez was a part of it, and Dr. Weiss and others. I hope I'm not missing anyone. But just much thanks to that team and to the awesome facilitation that helped us get to this point. And I want to open it up for any questions. I know there's some subcommittee members also in the room. I know this is the first time you might be seeing this, but there's plenty of opportunity to talk. So also if there's any questions.
Or great ideas as well.
Yeah, or great ideas. Anyone on the online, if you want to ask a question or make comment, please raise your hand. Yes, thank you so much, Bryce, and
you, Bryce.
we'll be talking soon. Okay, so last item D, facility usage policies between city, county, and APS. Councilor Pena.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, for putting this on the agenda. I know you had a jam-packed agenda. I said I would keep it brief. APS, I know I've had some brief conversations about this, and you know, we've been trying to get it on the agenda for a little bit, but I just thought I would just, you know, just chime in as we're talking about all the opioid treatment, behavioral health treatment, all this other stuff. I think it was mentioned earlier by several people that part of the solution is prevention and intervention work, right? I talked about this at City Council briefly the other day, is that, you know, if we can also do a framework and, you know, the groundwork and the foundation for having prevention and intervention efforts in our community, I think it helps to alleviate the problem as we go on, because this is going to be a generational issue, right? And over the summer, there's been some constituents that have come to me and just said that, you know, like, for example, Bernalillo County, they have an excellent program with the basketball, and you know, they have these leagues, and they go back and, you know, back and forth, and they play within the county community centers. And it's a really great program. But if you play at, for example, you're playing at Westside or Los Padillas, for example, you're playing at Los Padillas Community Center, then you have another child whose their game is over there at either Raymond G. Sanchez or Paradise Hills. And, you know, so I think as we're talking about collaboration and working together, how do we put all our facilities to use and create more of these programs so kids can use them? I live right across the street from a school, and, you know, I understand for the safety reasons, and I know that's why it's really complicated for APS. I know because of safety reasons, but maybe there's a way on how to, you know, cordon off the tracks, for example. We have neighborhood students in the that want to use the fields and the track, and all these things are becoming unavailable, and because of staffing and because of, and this is a, you know, this is a city issue. It's just all around, and I think we could do make a big impact in our community by allowing this. You know, I have the little viejitos and viejitas over here that the track is closed, you know, and I know we're talking about youth right now, but the track is closed, and they're, you know, they're just wanting to walk around. I live across the street from the gym, an APS gym, and I live, and to the side of me is our community center. And, you know, because of this anti-donation clause, I know we've been talking a lot about this. I think it becomes a hindrance. And I wish we could figure out a way how to work together to be able to see how the community benefit, how the prevention intervention efforts work, to be able to allow people to, I had coaches come to me and say, hey, we want to, and I don't want to say APS and the city, but we want to use the gym, but we have to pay $2,000. We have to have insurance. We have to have, you know, and it's really just a deterrence. And this is something that it's a void in our community. We have so many students, so many marginalized communities that could utilize this service, being in their neighborhood or close by. You know, Alamosa is a community where, you know, the school is 100% free or reduced lunch, Title I school. And so I'm just saying that, you know, we're guilty of it at the city. I don't know, you know, I'm touting the county because I think they do a good job with that. I would like to replicate that within the city and APS, and how do we allow that to expand and grow more programs and have more free or reduced programs for our kids in our community, because these are things I always remember going to the Westside Community Center, and there was a gazillion kids there, right? It was like a death trap. And obviously we create policies and rules and ratios for, you know, employees for per students and stuff like that, right? But then by all this work of doing that, we've kind of blocked off our kids from using our facilities, right? So I'll stop there. I mean, I can go on and on. But I think we really have to, again, same sentiment, work together to figure out solutions in our community to make sure that we're doing the prevention and intervention work that we need. And again, just to finish with the West Side Community Center, when we went there, I mean, this is when, you know, and we have the same problem. The problem didn't go away when we had a gazillion kids over there at West Side Community Center. It just, we did all this other stuff, right? We have waiting lists, we have this and that, and the problem didn't go away. So these kids are having nowhere to go, right? We talk about latchkey kids and kids that are just, you know, in the community, walking around, you know, looking for things to do. And I think we could do a better job of, and we have some facilities and we have things out there. So I think we can do a better job of that. And I'm talking about collectively, all of us. So that was my presentation.
Thank you, Councilor Pena. Any thoughts, questions?
I guess what I would say, I agree with you, Councilor Pena. There's definitely a need for opportunity for our kids to have access, and how do we do that and do it in a really thoughtful and collaborative way. I know that APS has done a lot of work lately around our joint use agreements. We have someone out of our real estate department that works specifically on that. But I don't think what we have done is literally sit down with city, county, and APS together so that we start to think about what is it? I mean, what's the what? How big is it and how much is it? Because there is a cost, obviously, even for APS to open up the facilities. You know, there's a staff allowance that we need to have, and some of those things that we need to consider. I wouldn't even begin to understand the operational side of it. It's not what board members do, but maybe it is that conversation. We'll take it back with Dr. Blakey, who's our chief operating officer, and let her know that this is, you know, a concern. I do hear you on the fencing, because that is a new piece that came about as a result of like some safety concerns. And when we fenced, we fenced a lot of the yard, and we ended up fencing off some tracks, and we ended up fencing off some playgrounds and such. And so I know that that's become an issue. My granddaughter attends Alamosa. And so I remember going to the Kindy 500 race and had to wait to let somebody let me in through the gate. Whereas before, that track was just available. I don't really know what the solution is to that, but I'm hoping that, you know, it would be great if we could just, you know, assure the safety for our children, you know, across the city and all over, because I know that all our families, definitely, when we go out and we listen to families, safety is a huge concern and is something that they bring up again and again. And we want to make sure that we're doing things with a lens from equity too, and not just, you know, securing some places, but not securing others. And, you know, how do we do that thoughtfully? But what we can do is we'll take this conversation back. We'll bring it up with Dr. Blakey and have her reach out to you specifically. And maybe we could come up with, you know, together with her, come up with a strategy with your departments and the county departments, so that we could start to think about how big is the what and how much of it do we need to consider, and what does that look like? I don't know, Board Member Gonzalez, do you want to add anything else to that?
No, I agree with everything that you've said. Thanks.
Thank you. And again, you know, at the city, we're kind of in the same mode. You know, we have where you have to rent the building if you want to utilize it. And, you know, some coaches were telling me it was like $2,000 for some facilities. And it's a disincentive. And I think putting our heads together, we can ignite lots of places for kids to be able to do stuff in our community if we just kind of put our heads together. So thank you. I appreciate your time. And then, of course, you know, I'm having these conversations. Yeah, thank you for Yolanda, Board Member Yolanda, for talking about that. But I am having conversations with the city as well, because we need to do a better job. So thank you.
And no, Thank you, Counselor Pena. I want to just echo, I agree. And when we talked about this the other day, these are the prevention efforts. When we talk about opening, other other states have shown success in doing things like opening the school gyms on Friday evenings or on the weekends. And it takes so much of our only open space or green space is housed in our schools in our county and our city. Community centers. When I first got here, our community center, our Parks and Recreation strategic plan that was developed 7 years ago actually has an expansion of, so they called them our city Parks and Recs folks actually put this in the strategic plan, and they called it life hubs, because they talked about the community centers being more than just, a before and after school program. So I think this is a great opportunity to think about how we could collaborate. Of course, there's new things around safety that we have to consider, but we can't isolate ourselves. And these are the ways we connect people, have them in nature, all the things that behavioral health professionals tell us are good for our minds and bodies and brains. So thank you for bringing this, Councilor Pena. I definitely support these efforts and would want to ask the county to partner in any ways we can start piloting or opening up our centers for our communities. So thank you. Any other comments or questions? Well, awesome. Thank you. What a rich evening. I'm so lucky. I feel like that in New Mexico, we have such great expertise and heart and passion. And I'm thankful to be in this position with you all. And I know we're going to do good. So announcement of the next Albuquerque Bernalillo County Government Commission and APS meeting is Thursday, October 26, 2023, here at the Ken Sanchez Chambers and/or Hybrid. I want to thank all of our participants, Health Equity Council, Gilbert Ramirez, and your expertise to bring in research to inform our data. Again, County Attorney Ken Martinez for bringing us all the smarts, and all our staff. So thank you, everyone. There's no other business. All our partners. The meeting is adjourned.